1897, Zona Heaster Shue was found dead in her home in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. Her husband, Erasmus Edward Shue, claimed she had died of natural causes, specifically everlasting faint, but the circumstances were strange. Edward insisted on preparing the body himself, dressing Zona in a high-necked dress with a stiff collar and a veil covering her face. Throughout the wake, he acted oddly, cradling her head and refusing to leave her side. To everyone else, it seemed like grief, but to Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, it was something more, a gut feeling that wouldn't go away. She was convinced that her daughter's death was no accident. Then, one night, something truly unexplainable happened. Mary Jane claimed to have been visited by Zona's ghost. Not once, but 4 nights in a row. Each time, the apparition appeared at the foot of her bed, shrouded in a cold, pale light. The ghost spoke in a whispery voice, telling her that Edward had unalived her in a fit of rage. Zona's ghost described the horrifying details. She claimed that Edward had become enraged over dinner, accusing her of not preparing any meat. He attacked her, grabbing her by the neck and shaking her violently. In her mother's words, her head turned completely around. The ghost lifted her head to reveal a twisted neck, the skin swollen and discolored with the bruises of finger marks. She pointed to her neck repeatedly, her eyes wide with a look of pleading desperation. She begged her mother to seek justice. After the 4th visit, Mary Jane was convinced this wasn't just grief or imagination. Her daughter's spirit was crying out from beyond the grave. Desperate for justice, Mary Jane went to the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston, and demanded an investigation. At first, Preston was skeptical, a ghost solving its own demise. It sounded insane, but Mary Jane's passion and conviction were undeniable, and her descriptions were too vivid to ignore. She insisted that Zona's neck had been broken and demanded that her body be exhumed. After weeks of pleading, Preston finally agreed. Zona's body was exhumed, and an autopsy was performed by Dr. George Knapp. What they found was beyond shocking. Zona's neck was indeed broken, just as the ghost had described. Her windpipe was crushed. Her neck bore the marks of finger-shaped bruises, and her ligaments were torn, indicating a violent strangulation. The autopsy report was damning. Zona had not died of natural causes. She had been unalived. When confronted with the evidence, Edward Shue's story began to fall apart. At first, he claimed Zona had died of a heart attack. Then he said she had fallen down the stairs. His shifting narrative made him look more suspicious with each retelling. The townspeople began to whisper, could a ghost have really solved her own demise? Edward Shue was arrested and charged. During his trial, the prosecutor deliberately avoided mentioning the ghost, focusing on the physical evidence and Edward's inconsistent testimonies. But the defense made a critical mistake. In a bid to discredit Mary Jane, they grilled her about the ghostly visits, assuming it would make her look delusional. But instead, Mary Jane remained calm and unwavering. She recounted the visits in detail, her voice steady, her eyes fierce. The courtroom was dead silent, captivated by her eerie tale. The defense's strategy backfired. The jury was moved by Mary Jane's conviction and the chilling accuracy of the autopsy. How else could she have known about the broken neck? After just over an hour of deliberation, the jury found Edward Shue guilty, sentencing him to life in prison. He died 3 years later while still incarcerated. The case of Zona Heaster Shue became known as the only trial in U.S. history where a ghost's testimony helped convict a killer. It was widely reported in newspapers at the time, and has since become legendary in paranormal circles. But the story didn't end there. Locals began reporting strange sightings near Zona's grave. A woman in a flowing white dress, wandering the cemetery late at night, her head tilted at an unnatural angle. They claimed to hear whispers on the wind, soft and mournful, echoing Mary Jane's own words. Her head was turned completely. Historians and skeptics have tried to explain away the legend, calling it a case of grief-induced hallucinations or coincidental evidence. But no one can deny the power of Mary Jane's conviction and the accuracy of her ghostly visions. Even today, the legend of the Greenbrier ghost endures, leaving one haunting question. Was this truly a message from beyond the grave? A spirit seeking justice for a life cut short? Or was it all an incredible coincidence? A mother's intuition somehow guiding her to the truth? On February 21st, 1977, Teresita Basa was found brutally unalived in her Chicago apartment. Her body was discovered under a burning mattress, with no clear motive or suspect. The case went cold almost immediately. But then something truly unexplainable happened. Months later, Remy Chua, a co-worker of Teresita's, began to experience strange visions and vivid dreams. She became restless, haunted by images of Teresita and an overwhelming sense of fear. But what started as dreams quickly turned into something far more terrifying. Remy's behavior began to change. She spoke in a voice that wasn't her own, her eyes vacant, her words desperate. She claimed to be possessed by Teresita's spirit, who was begging for justice. In these trances, she named her attacker Alan Showery. She revealed that he had gone to Teresita's apartment under the guise of fixing her television, but once inside, he attacked her, stole her jewelry, and set her body on fire to destroy the evidence. At first, Remy's husband, Joe, was skeptical, but the details were too vivid, too specific. She even described the jewelry in intricate detail and insisted it had been given to Showery's girlfriend. Desperate for answers, Joe went to the police. The detectives were highly skeptical. Who wouldn't be? A ghost solving its own case? It sounded insane, but they were also out of leads. They decided to investigate quietly, questioning Showery under the guise of routine follow-up. Showery denied everything, but then they visited his girlfriend, who unknowingly confirmed Teresita's claims by showing them the jewelry. She had no idea it had been stolen. The detectives were stunned. How could Remy have known such specific details? There was no logical explanation, and with this bizarre yet damning evidence, they confronted Showery again. This time, he broke down and confessed. He admitted to the crime exactly as Teresita had described it. He was arrested, tried, and convicted, all thanks to a ghost's testimony. But the story didn't end there. During the trial, Remy revealed even more chilling details. She said Teresita's spirit described how Showery had been plotting the crime for days, choosing his moment carefully. He had known that Teresita was kind and trusting, that she wouldn't question him coming over to help with a broken TV. In court, Remy recounted how Teresita's spirit said she pleaded for her life, offering him money and valuables, but he didn't care. His plan was to leave no trace, no witnesses. He thought he had committed the perfect crime. But how could Remy have known this? She had never met Showery. She wasn't even close to Teresita. They were just co-workers in a hospital who barely spoke. And yet, she recounted the crime scene with haunting accuracy. The defense tried to discredit her, calling it coincidence, a product of imagination or grief, but the jury didn't buy it. Showery's confession, the stolen jewelry, the vivid details, it was too much to ignore. He was sentenced to 14 years for the demise of Teresita Basa. The case made headlines worldwide, a crime solved from beyond the grave. Paranormal investigators flocked to Chicago, eager to understand how a spirit could demand justice from the other side. Skeptics tried to explain it away as psychological phenomena, but no theory could fully account for the specific details Remy provided. Even today, the case of Teresita Basa remains one of the most unbelievable and unsettling instances of paranormal intervention in criminal history. Was this truly the spirit of a woman seeking justice? Or was it an impossible coincidence? What do you believe?